Okay, so we have a really interesting guest on today. Her name is Nia Lui. She is incredible. She is a mom of 3, lives in Utah, has grown up in Utah, has a very, very interesting story, and we're just so excited to have her on the podcast. She kind of talks about where she's been throughout her spiritual journey, who she is as a person, and kind of where that led her today. And something that really drew me to her was just how open and vulnerable I could tell she is, and genuine just about things that she's gone through. So I really look forward for you guys to hear the conversation, and welcome Nia Lui to the podcast. So welcome to the zoo. Okay, I'm so excited. We have Nia Lui on the podcast today. So we're so stoked and happy that you just decided to come and chat with us. So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I found Nia through social media, just through TikTok, and I had just come across some of your videos and just, I don't know, I just felt like we would get along and just have fun chatting about life and being a parent, kind of living in Utah and what that looks like and what we believe. And so anyway, I'm just excited. That's like the best part I feel like about social media is that you can find people that maybe you wouldn't otherwise, you know? So how did you like start getting into TikTok, and like how did you decide to kind of go for that? Because I feel like it is a little bit overwhelming, you know, at first.
Yeah, it was. So I started my TikTok on my 29th birthday, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it for fun, just like a creative outlet. And I told my husband, I'm like, I know it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to be like my fun, let's make some videos.
Yeah.
And it's turned into this amazing community of just, I've met so many amazing women through it. And so I've just kind of continued on that path.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How long ago was that then? Because how old are you now?
I'm 32.
32, okay.
So like 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So we're pretty close in age then. I'm 33. So yeah, that's
Nice.
cool. Yeah, because actually it's hard because for the longest time I would go on TikTok and I just felt like conflicted because I don't know, I like connecting.
Right.
But then people are like, oh, TikTok's going to be banned. You know, they're like saying all these things. And I'm like, is it really worth it to like put the time in and everything? But I just keep like getting this feeling, you know, that I should keep trying to kind of just be more present on social media, like whatever that looks like for me to kind of just connect and see where it goes. And obviously with the podcast and stuff. So I like really look up to you for just being open to talking about just your life. Cause sometimes I feel like it can be hard to open yourself up to strangers, you know, like, has it been hard for you to do that?
Yeah. I feel like now I've kind of grown some tougher skin to where I'm like, man, the comments don't really matter. Like they don't know me or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it like every mean comment was like, oh my gosh, they hate me. This is so hard. But now I'm like, oh, it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the process of growing my social media, you just learn things and you kind of govern yourself on what you react to and how you mentally deal with that.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. So let's get into kind of telling our audience, I guess, just about yourself, maybe just where you're from and I don't know, siblings, family, what you like to do for fun, your kids, anything you want to talk about, just so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Cool. I grew up in Fairview, Utah. I have 5 siblings. I'm the middle child.
Oh, nice.
My family's amazing. My siblings are my best friends.
Do they all live in Utah?
Yes. Yeah,
wow.
they do.
That's
Yeah.
like more unique, I feel like. But people do stay in Utah. I just
Yeah.
feel like sometimes with jobs, a lot of times they can, you know, move all around. But
yeah, we've been very blessed to, like, we get together at least once a month, I would say, just to have fun and get together.
so fun.
And gosh, what else? I have 3 kids. I was a single mom for the first 3 years of motherhood. And I married my husband and popped out 2 more. And it's busy and so fun.
What are
And
the
I
ages
love
of
it.
your kids?
So 7, 3, and 11 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have like a really little.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to like your beliefs, did your family, like, were you raised LDS or?
Yeah, we grew up strong LDS. My dad was in the stake presidency from my age of 12 till I was on 12 to just a couple years ago.
Oh, wow. It's a long
So,
time.
Very strong you know,
Yeah.
in the church, LDS, which has been great. I feel like my parents gave us a really great foundation of the gospel, and whether we stray or not, like we always have them to be our foundation. So yeah, it was a great upbringing.
That's
loved it.
awesome. That's good.
You served a mission.
I
didn't you?
did, yeah.
Okay. Where did you serve your mission?
I served in the Houston, Texas South Mission, Spanish speaking. Yeah.
Right on. How was that?
It was so hard. It was so amazing. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I have nightmares about being back on my mission.
Yeah, we
I
always
did
talk
for
about
a
that.
very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
Like-
it's a different experience. You're on this like heightened level of spirituality, but also level of stress without your normal things to comfort you. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you serve?
It was 2013 to 2014. So
Okay.
February 2013 to September 2014.
Nice.
Yeah.
How was your mission president? Did you get to know him very well?
Yeah, he was awesome. He was really, really great. He taught us a lot about like letter of the law and spirit of the law and kind of how to differentiate when to do that, when to listen. I mean, you
Yeah.
always listen to the spirit, but like when maybe sometimes you need to not be so.
So uptight?
Yes.
Like a Pharisee?
Yeah. And we stayed in contact after my mission, and he helped me through pregnancy and stuff like that.
That's
And
really cool.
yeah, he's great. His wife's amazing too. So
That's really nice. I know some people that didn't have that close of a relationship with their mission president, or they
Yeah.
didn't get along with him, and it always saddens me because a lot of times like that relationship can be a really special one. It can be
Right.
like another father figure. And
Yeah.
most of the time mission presidents are ballers. Like
Yeah.
usually they're pretty successful in
Right.
life. Glad that you had a good experience with that.
yeah, it's great.
So how old are you when you went then?
I was 20, so it was like close to when the age changed.
Okay, so you were still pretty
Yeah,
young. Okay.
and I that almost deterred me from going because everyone's like, "Well, I'm going on a mission." I'm like, "I'm not doing that. No way."
Oh yeah.
Like everyone's posting about it. I'm not gonna do
Yeah,
that.
it was crazy. Like you said, the wave of
Yeah,
people going, especially
right.
girls.
Yeah.
And I felt like a lot of times, like girls would put in their papers and then not go
Right.
get married, which was fine. I was just
Yeah.
always like, you know, just I want to go if I really am going to do this. You know, I
Yeah.
don't want to just go because it's like trendy or something. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was just interesting.
It
But
was definitely the push that I needed because I never planned on going on a mission. I was
Really?
like, that is not for me. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that. I don't like wearing dresses. So it was just like, no. But it was, I vividly remember like the general conference where they changed the age, and I had a rugby game that day, so I didn't watch it. And my parents came up and my mom was like, oh my gosh, they just changed the age for missionaries. And I was like, I could go right now. I could literally leave right now.
so because of that, it kind of put it more on your radar a little
like,
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was a choice that cause like I was like, when I'm 21, maybe like, but I'll probably be married, whatever. And so
Yeah.
it kind of was like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah.
And then when everyone was like, I'm going, like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So-
me and Josh are kind of like that too, though. Like if it's something that everybody's doing, we're like,
Yeah.
like more wary. You're like, I
Right.
want to be different, but
Right.
also I don't want to just do it because everyone else is doing
Yeah,
it. So I totally get
totally.
that. But that's awesome though. I love just hearing, I don't know, girls being open and going on missions because it really did change my life for
Oh,
the
yeah.
better. I just feel grateful. Like I had that time, even though like you said, it was so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I just wouldn't change it for the world. So have you used Spanish like since you got back or not really?
A little bit. Not
Yeah.
so much in like a professional setting, but just connecting with people. I wish I used it more, but I'm not one to be like, hey, I speak Spanish. Do you
Oh,
want
I
to speak Spanish
know.
with me?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, totally.
But it has given me opportunities to connect with different people that I wouldn't have otherwise. So
Did a lot of your siblings serve too?
my older brother did.
Okay.
Yeah, he served in Mexico City.
Okay.
But he was definitely one that I was like, oh my gosh, he's the most amazing
Like you looked
spiritual
up to
leader.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was a push for me to go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually felt that way too because both of my sisters served. And it was just cool to see them do something hard and have that example and realize like it is kind of cool for girls to go because
Yeah.
they were older than me. And I think at that time it wasn't as like prevalent for girls to go. And it was
Right.
just good to see that. So I was curious if you're open to talking about it because I know you've talked about it a little bit on social media. So when you got home, you were dating somebody and you guys ended up getting pregnant
Yeah.
after your mission, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure that was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine just being like a single mom alone. I don't know. It's hard for me to even fathom now that I have a son. It's just heavy to even just be a parent,
Yeah.
like with a partner. So
Right.
kind of walking us through that journey and what that looked like for you.
Yeah. So, starting back to when I got home from my mission, it's a hard transition. I feel like that was such a hard transition for me
Yes.
to like have this structure and knowing what you're doing every day and being in this, spiritual role.
Yeah.
And then coming home and being
Purpose.
like, do whatever you want. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do I do though? Tell me what to do. I'll do
Yeah.
it.
But I want like a schedule.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah. I'm really good at following direction. If someone tells me what to do, I'll do it.
That's
but
good.
I kind of like my going inactive or less active, whatever, was really slow. It just started with like not reading my scriptures and
Yeah.
not praying, and sometimes skipping church, and sometimes not wearing my garments, and it just kind of led me down a path of not the best decisions and not the best people to surround yourself with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up getting pregnant, and it was the most terrifying thing ever. Like I was like, my life's over. This is the end. There's
Yeah.
no way back from this. I'm done. And I actually told my older brother very first, because we were at the time working at the same company, and I texted him and I said, I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm so terrified.
Yeah.
And all he said was, that our family will be there for you. Like whatever you
That's
decide to
super
do.
nice.
Yeah. And so it was very like reassuring to be like, okay, they won't hate me. Like they won't think I'm this crazy
Yeah.
person.
No, that's such a good reaction, because
Yeah.
I'm sure you felt probably so scared and alone. And
Oh, I
yeah,
was, yeah. And I just felt like I screwed up too bad to like, I'm like, this is it. This is, the end of my journey.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
so
Yeah.
then I called my dad, who was at the time stake president. And
Yeah.
I was crapping myself. I
I
was
bet.
so
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah.
And he just kind of asked me how I'm feeling, and I was bawling my eyes out. I don't know if he even understood what I was saying, but he just said, okay, next time, because I was living in Orem. And he said, next time you can make it down here, just come home. We'll talk about it. We'll talk through it, what you want to do, like how you're feeling about
So
everything.
he was pretty calm.
Yeah,
It sounds like
so calm.
Oh, wow.
He was
That's
so
really
calm.
good. Yeah.
And then he said, like, do you want me to tell mom or do you want to tell mom? And I was like, you just tell her. I don't want to have this conversation again.
Yeah.
And then
It's
I
a lot
hung
to have
up.
to like rehash it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
And so she called me like 2 minutes later, and she was just giggling. And I was like, what the hell is your
Yeah.
problem?
You're like, are you okay? Yeah.
This is a weird reaction.
Yeah.
And she just said, Nia, it's not the end of the world. You're okay. Like, we'll get through this. This is okay. And I was like, okay, great. And so I just went through that with them, and it was great.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That's really good that you had that support. But I think there's probably a lot of people out there in different ways could relate, because I feel like I can relate in a way too, where I don't know, you just get so down on yourself for certain things that you go through, and you're like, they're not going to look at me the same ever again. Like you said, I'm not going to be able to move forward. And it's so easy to kind of get in your head. But I'm so like grateful for you that you had a good support system that was just like, going to help you and
Right.
move forward and everything. Was the dad in the picture at all? Like, were you guys dating?
He was
or
at the beginning. We weren't like serious dating. It was very casual.
Okay.
He wanted to be involved, so I would invite him to all the appointments and stuff, and he just kept not coming, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then when I was 7 months pregnant, my parents wanted to meet up with him and us and just be like, even if you and Nia don't end up together, we want you to know that you're welcome in our home.
Oh,
and like,
that's nice. Yeah.
that we want to be there for you as well.
Yeah.
And he bailed on that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that was kind of my breaking point to where I was like, you're either all in or you're all out. I can't. Like, this is like a child that we're bringing into this world.
Yeah. It's very serious. Yeah.
And that was our last conversation.
Wow.
So I haven't talked to him since. He's married and has kids, and I'm sure he's doing
never
great.
reached out ever since that. Wow.
So I kept my same phone number. And I switched phones to just be like, the line
New
is
chapter.
open. Like,
Yeah.
And just in case he does want to reach out, like, I will not close that door on him.
Oh, that's good.
It is what it is. At the time, I was like, this is the worst thing that could happen. But recognizing that, like, how my journey has ended up and how that somewhat made it easier for him to just step out.
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful that he made that decision and that I had the support to not necessarily need him to be there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It sounds like things have worked out the way that they were supposed to.
Yeah, totally. There are moments where you're like, this is not going to work out, and you just have to be patient.
Yeah.
and hope that God knows what he's doing, which he does. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And I was curious. So after you had your baby, because I feel like I've heard maybe some of your videos a little bit talking about how you could have gone another way, like kind of pushing God away
Yeah.
and, you know,
Yeah.
being resentful and stuff. And so how did you kind of work through that? Like going through something hard, but still being open to, I guess, relying on God and through the hard, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it was such a day by day experience.
Yeah.
But I actually was like already talking to my bishop, like going through the repentance process before I knew I was pregnant. And bishops aren't trained to know everything to say. So he was like,
Yeah.
And they're all different.
they are, yeah, totally different life experiences, different, ways of living. And I could have taken things that he said to me and just been like, yeah, screw you. I'm not doing this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But it was like a pivotal point to where I kind of looked at myself and like, am I going to like play the victim and just be like, woe is me, this sucks. My baby daddy left me, whatever. Or am I going to like take control and like actually get the life that I want, that I know that I want at the end of this? In some ways, it would have been easier to just be like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to do what I want. I don't want to go through the repentance process and have to confess all my sins. From my foundational like childhood of growing up in the gospel, I knew I still wanted a temple marriage. I wanted to be in the gospel because when I'm living the gospel, life is just easier. And happier and more joyful, even through the trials and stuff that you go through. And so it was an intentional day by day decision to be like, okay, I do want this. It's hard right now.
Yeah.
But it's better to go through the hard now than to have to go through the hard later without having the gospel in my life. And so it just came down to making those small decisions every day to recommit to the gospel.
I really like what you said, that it was day by day, because I think it's really hard, I don't know, at times to maybe look at someone who's gone through something and you're like, wow, how is she standing here today? Like, I don't know. But like you said, it's a journey and I don't know, life is already so hard. And so I think I also was inactive for a while and I felt like I really needed that time in my life to kind of figure out what I wanted. And kind of like what you said, going through things, you kind of realize what you want your life to look like. And if you do want a temple marriage and if you want to find somebody who has these certain things in common with you. And I realized just with dating and choices I had made, I was like, wow, I actually think I do want this, and I think it does at the end of the day make me happier and I feel more peace in my life living that way. And I think we all have moments maybe like that, but it doesn't have to be maybe as extreme as things that I've gone through but I do think for me, it was really good to have that journey because I feel like I appreciate it more. And I don't know if you feel that way too, but it's like you worked so hard to kind of get where you are and you see the contrast too, So I think that's just really admirable because I can't even imagine having to go through what you went through, but like really just pushing through and relying on God. But it, like you said, it's so worth it to do that. So
I think it does come down to personal experience. Like even like looking back at my parents being like, it's better to be in the God, all those things. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Especially in college. I was like, don't tell me what to do kind of thing. But I think it takes going through that and making those decisions for yourself to actually value it and recognize the change in your life that happens when you choose those things over other things.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I'm going to preface it with our child, Noah, is very passionate. And I just have like this, I feel like it's like this father's intuition that when he's older, he's going to stray out of the lines a little bit. It's something that I've felt in my core, and something that's like been impressed on me is just like this feeling that I need to be kind of like what your parents were to you, where there's just like love shown rather than casting stones.
Yeah.
How big of a difference do you think that made in your experience with that? Because it sounds like if it was just like your experience with your bishop, maybe it could have been different.
Yeah. I think it made all the difference. They have always been strong members of the church, but also very open-minded and accepting and loving without giving up their standards and beliefs. So I think the way that they reacted changed everything. I think if they came at me with like, what the heck? Like, why did you do that? And there was a little bit of that. I think that a parent's job is to correct. And there were those conversations where they were like, where do you want to be in life? This is not the path that we saw for you or whatever. And those were hard conversations, but they did it out of so much love and a place of wanting the best for me instead of like judgment. And so I think, and even throughout the pregnancy and single motherhood and dating experience, they've always just been this foundation of like, I know I can always go to them. I know that they will always be there no matter what I say, whether I say I got pregnant or I think I'm going to go back to the temple, whether it's good or bad, they were there and accepting and loving with open arms, no matter what I was doing. So I think it made, they put the gospel and Christ-like love into action and just loved me through it. So, yeah.
I feel like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or not a cultural, like a generational thing, but I feel like, unfortunately, stories like yours are not as common.
Yeah.
And what you hear more of is like the negative side where there's judgment being cast.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is a lot of stories where parents are showing love or leaders are showing love, but it just seems the stories that get amplified on social media and that everybody hears about are just like these stories where they're super judgmental. But I'm glad that you had that experience and that your parents were so cool and loving.
Yeah, it was great.
So I had a question. So after that happened, did you kind of rely more on your parents and like move in with them, or were you still kind of just on your own figuring things out?
Yeah, I moved in with them. I think I was like 8 months pregnant before I had my son.
Yeah.
And I gave myself a year with them. I'm a very independent person to where I'm like, I don't want to rely on anyone.
Yeah.
And so, but I knew I needed their support because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even like babysitting kids. And so I was like, how am I going to be a mom? And so I really, really needed that support that first year, but I used that year to pay off any debt that I had and get some stuff into savings and then make a plan for moving out and living on my own. Because I think for me, it was, I felt the need to do it on my own.
Yeah.
Without having to rely on my parents. And so
But it's good that you had like that landing spot. It sounds like. I'm so glad that you were able
I could
to.
not have done it without that year of just support, especially through postpartum, like, and being up all night. I could not have done it without my mom.
Yeah.
Like
that's what I was thinking about. I'm like,
she was up with me at 2 a.m. having breakdowns. Like I was a wreck. But then I moved out after a year up to Sugar House.
Oh, nice.
I found a cheap cinder block 1-bedroom apartment that I could afford. And luckily I mean, everything aligned to where as hard as my single motherhood time was, I couldn't have picked it better. Like with the support that I had, with the job that I had, they made a position for me to work from home.
Oh, wow.
And so I worked full time and mommed full time and paid my bills barely, but I made it through.
Yeah.
And that just like every step of the way I had, like God's hand was in it. And I met certain people that I needed to meet that just shaped my entire journey. And it couldn't have worked out better. It was so freaking hard. But
like the fact that you could still see God's hand in it and that you just, like you said, took it day by day. And
it sometimes took looking back at it and being like, oh, there was God there. I thought I was all alone, you know?
Yeah,
and
totally.
so I'm grateful that I recognized those moments of like God guiding what I was doing and the people that he put in my life.
That's kind of crazy that you moved to Sugar House, because that kind of happened to me too. It was the same area that I moved to when I was starting to come back to church, and I actually had like a really amazing bishop in that area and stuff, and it just resonated with me, like you said, that it just kind of falls into place, and sometimes it's really hard to see in the moment, but then you look back and you're like, wow, you saved me in that moment, you know? So I wanted to ask you, because me and Josh actually met on a dating app, and so I think you had said that you met your husband now through social media, right? So,
well, yeah, we met through mutual.
Oh, through mutual. Yeah. Okay.
The dating app.
So yeah, tell me how you guys met and, you know, your first date and everything and what that looked like.
Yeah, it was, well, so I was working from home and going to a home ward, and I did not have a social life because I was a mom. And so I first downloaded mutual when I was like 3 months postpartum. I was very much like, I'm
And
going to
if
find a husband.
people don't know, that's like the LDS.
It's like LDS
right?
Tinder, basically.
Yeah, LDS Tinder. Yeah. Okay.
So I was like, I'm going to find a husband. I'm going to do this. Like my son's going to have a dad.
And how old were you at this point?
I was 25.
25. Okay.
Yeah. So and then I would delete it and be like, yeah, screw this. I'm going to be a single mom forever. It's way easier because dating is hard.
Oh gosh.
Even
yeah.
without a kid.
When
and
it's
then,
layered. Yeah, totally.
And then with a kid, it's like, this is insane. And so I would go on like a date or two here and there and like talk to some guys or whatever. And I think I would download it, delete it, and
go back and forth. Yeah.
And I think me and my husband matched every single time I re-downloaded it.
Really?
Because I was like, ooh, he's a hot poly. Like, ooh, he's like, yes, please.
Yeah.
You know? And then we would like talk for a little bit and then never meet up. And then when I moved to Sugar, because like in Fairview, there's not a large dating pool.
It's pretty small town, right?
Yeah, it's like 1,200 people.
Okay.
And if there are people in the area, you knew them from high school. And I was like,
yeah, you needed
I'm not going there.
Something new. Yeah, for sure.
And so when I moved to Sugar House, we actually met up and went on a couple of dates. Our first date was actually, my son was there.
Oh, wow.
Us.
Okay.
It was one of those things where I was like, I will never date with my son. Like he will not meet any of these guys. But it just, I don't know why. I still look back and now I know that it was like God just telling me that it would be okay. But
yeah,
I had a babysitter lined up and then she bailed like an hour before the date. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but like my babysitter bailed. I can't go out tonight. And he was like, just bring him with you. And I was like, no, I'm not bringing my son on our first date.
That's actually really cool that he said that though, that he would be down to still meet you. And yeah.
And I just, for some reason was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And
good for you. Yeah.
We went to Chili's and then we went
Gotta love Chili's.
Yeah, I love Chili's. It's still our favorite.
That's amazing. I love that.
And then we went to a park and we played on the playground and ran around. And
I love that.
It was so like, oh my gosh, I really could find a father for my son. Like it was one of those moments where it's like, this is possible. Like I could find a guy that will accept my son. And so
that's amazing.
We just dated and there was like a period of time where we did not talk because he made me mad.
Okay.
Well, he was like a bachelor, like living with 7 guys, living the life, you know.
Are you guys about the same age or no?
Yeah, he graduated a year after me, so he's less than a year younger than me.
Okay. He grew up here in Utah too?
Yeah, he grew up in Syracuse.
Okay.
Just up north.
Nice.
But he like bailed on a couple dates because things came up or whatever, and then he bailed for like the 3rd time, and I was like, I sent him this big long text of like, listen, if you're not ready to like take on a kid, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
You just got to let me know so that I don't get my hopes up. And like, if you're not ready to prioritize us, that's okay.
Yep.
But
you're like, I'm just being honest because it's a lot. You're like, I don't want to put myself out there.
Yeah. I can't date someone that's just like, whatever. This is not casual dating. This is like husband, father type.
Are you husband
dating.
material or not?
Right.
You're like, come on,
totally.
let's go.
And
no,
all he sent back was a thumbs up emoji.
Oh.
And I was like, F you, I'm done.
Not the thumbs up emoji.
Yeah, he's literally never sent me a thumbs up emoji ever again
You're
in
like,
my
what
life.
does that even mean?
Yeah, and so I was like, cool, sweet. I'm done.
You're
with
like,
you.
got it. And thumbs up back.
Cool. Have a good life.
Yeah.
And then we didn't talk for like 6 months. But in that time, I just couldn't bring myself to like date. I was like, I'm kind of done. I would like talk to some people.
Well, it sounds like you guys had a really good connection too. And I'm sure you were a bit disappointed,
I
right?
was.
Yeah.
It was one of those, like in my dating experience, if a guy didn't work out, I was very much like, cool, whatever. Like didn't work out. It's fine. Moving on.
Yeah.
But with him, for some reason, it was like, dang, that one stung. Like that sucked.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because he was a return missionary and he was cool and he loved the gospel and it was everything I was looking for. He was super hot. And so it was like, dang it, that sucks. And then I think that I like manifested him into my life because like 6 months later, my mom was like, you should watch The Secret. Have you ever heard of The Secret?
Yes.
Where it's like whatever you put out into the universe, you get back.
I definitely believe that though.
Yeah, totally. And so I was like, okay, they say to envision what you want in life as if it's already happened.
Yep.
And so like one night I was like, okay, I'm just going to envision my wedding. That's what I want is marriage.
I love that.
And in my vision, it was like we got married at my parents' house. And I was like, that's weird. I don't think I would get married in Fairview. Like, I don't think so. And then
this was a dream?
This was like me envisioning
it
like
was still just in your mind.
comes up for me with marriage.
That's
like,
kind of crazy that came up even just like thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was the groom at the end.
Oh, wow.
At the end. And I was like, yeah, no, that didn't work out. So we're going to just blur that out. It's fine.
You're like, are you sure that's it? Yeah.
Yeah.
him?
No, that's not, I don't know who that is yet.
Yeah.
And then the very next day he DM'd me on Instagram and said, hey, I was thinking about you last night. Just wanted to check in, see how you and Milo are doing. And I was like, oh my gosh.
You're like, actually,
Oh my gosh.
hi.
Hi, how are you? I just thought about you last night too. I didn't tell him that.
You guys are on the
'cause I
same
was like,
wavelength, see?
yeah. And so I was like, cool. Hey, what's up? We're good.
Yeah.
I was
You're just trying
very
to keep it more casual, but in your mind, you're thinking, okay, I want to talk. Yeah.
And then he was like, I know this is weird, but can I come over and just catch up with you and talk? Because of what I was envisioning, I was like, okay, sure. Come on over. And we caught up and then he said, I know this might be really forward, but I want to be with you. And I was like,
oh, just from the get-go.
yeah,
Dang.
that first day. And he's like, I want to be in your life. I want to be with Milo. I want to be there for all the things.
Wow.
Totally up to you, obviously, but that's where I'm at. And I was like,
you're like, actually,
okay.
this is what I've been wanting to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I literally remember being like, okay, what do you mean? No one has ever been that forward in dating. It's always yeah, whatever. And so I was like, okay, cool. Sweet. And so we just started hanging out more. And then that was end of September of 2019. And we got married April 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it just the timing worked out to where we were both in a better headspace. And yeah.
Did he ever share with you his perspective, why he felt the need to reach out to you?
Yeah,
randomly?
so he was chilling at his house with all of his buddies, and they were, I don't know if you know what kava is.
Yeah, I do.
So they were drinking kava, just having a good time or whatever, and he mentioned man, I kind of screwed that one up. And his friend was like, what are you doing here with a bunch of dudes when you could be with a girl? You're being dumb. And so I was like, thank you so much for saying that. So that's when he was like, okay, fine, I'll reach out to her or whatever. And so I think it was just kind of a realization for him, what am I doing with my life? What do I want? And so he reached out to me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's we have similarities, which I think is just funny because me and Josh felt the same way. We had matched on a couple different dating apps and then he ended up sliding into my DMs, but it was all these different ways that I felt like God was like, hey, you guys really need to talk,
Here he is.
Looking back. Right.
Totally.
And then the same thing as you, I had gotten home from my mission in 2019. It was end of summer and kind of throughout the fall, I just was like, I'm going to manifest this. I remember it was New Year's 2019 and I was talking to my family and some of my aunts and my cousins and I was like, I'm going to get a boyfriend this next year. That's what 2020 is going to be for me,
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. And so it's just funny that you said that because I just remember thinking that's what I want, I'm ready. Let's do this. And so I think Josh was kind of more into it at first. And then once I realized I was going to go for it, I was pretty forward with him too, kind of but it's I think Josh respected that though, because I was just ready. And I'm if you want to do this, let's do this. If you don't, then I'm going to go and, find somebody who's down. But like you said, the timing always works out the way it's supposed to. And I'm just it's just so cool hearing your story that kind of God pushed both of you back together and realizing that was actually the path you needed to go on and you guys trusted in that and just look where you are now, it's just so beautiful that ended up working out. So then you guys got married in 2020 and did you guys wait a while to have your first
No,
baby?
we were let's get this going. We already have a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
We wanted a honeymoon baby. And we got pregnant a month after getting married.
Dang, that's awesome though that he was down to kind of start his, your family together. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an only child, which is really rare in the Polynesian culture, but he wanted kids,
That's awesome.
And I was like, me too. And so we had our second, and it was hard to be married and go through pregnancy together. I'd never been through pregnancy with a partner. And so I was like,
yeah, you're this is a new experience.
I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And a lot of things came up for me to where I don't know if it was PTSD or trauma, just from guys that I was with. We went through a lot together and he helped me through a lot of those.
Well, it's probably
feelings.
Scary to trust, right?
Yeah.
Because you had done a lot on your own.
Totally.
And so you're opening yourself up to are they going to help me
Yeah.
through this? Are they going to
Yeah.
stay? And I don't know. I'm sure you had a lot of feelings, but
Yeah. It was definitely a control thing where I was like, I've been in control of my parenting experience all by myself.
Yes.
Like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to parent my kid. And then bringing someone else into that and like allowing them to parent your kid, it was a hard adjustment for me to be like, yes, you can discipline. Don't do it like that. You know,
Yeah, because he's already like disciplining your son. That's 3, right?
And I was like, like you're in this as much as I am now. Like he's your son as much as he is mine now. Like, you know, but he came up from a different upbringing, and so our parenting styles were a little different.
Yeah,
and the Polynesian culture is a little more like, knock it off, stop crying, go to your room type thing, which is fine, which is great. You need that. The sternness. Yeah. But I'm very much like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, and so it was like, oh, don't do that. And so it was so hard for me to give up control. But we talked so much about how we wanted to parent and how, like, my perspective and his perspective. And I feel like we balance each other out really well with like validating their feelings, but also being stern to where they grow and learn.
Yeah. I think that's super important. I think that's been kind of hard, I think, for us too. I think anyone, when you first become a parent, like, what do you think, Josh? Like our parenting styles, I don't know how that transition was for you.
I don't know. I feel like I was just so freaked out that I had to like help keep this little baby alive. That I was just like, dude, who trusted us with this thing?
Yeah, who put us in charge?
Seriously.
It's like I just felt grateful that that our child was still alive each night. Just felt like, yep, we did it. He's alive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I was like never really into kids before having a child, but then I felt like my heart just instantly grew.
Oh, yeah.
Once he was born. Totally. It was like I always say it was like the Grinch, like when my heart grew and it busted out of the box and just became bigger instantly.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like for me. So I feel like our thing was more with gender roles, more so than it was with parenting. Because when we first got married, I own a pest control company and we started it from the ground up, like from scratch, right at the very beginning of our marriage. And it was stressful and I had to work like a madman.
And we were like you, we were just older-ish, like Utah standards. Right. And we were like just kind of ready to start a family. We weren't, you know, like if it happens, it happens. And it happened on the honeymoon. So we were like, okay, we're going to do this. But it was a lot harder than I realized to have that many changes at once, you know?
Yeah.
Because like you said, you're balancing being a new parent, new marriage.
Yeah.
Parenting roles, all those things. So
I think that what Caitlin was expecting me to be more of a passive father and like maybe not as involved or have as many opinions, but I definitely like have opinions.
Yeah.
And like want to be involved in it.
It's not that I thought you'd be passive. It was more just like, I guess just what you see with your parents sometimes. With my dad, he was just working a lot, you know, and my mom kind of was just at home for, you know, majority of my childhood, staying with us and taking care of us. And so it's not like he wasn't present, but he kind of just let her do her thing a little bit, you know? And so I think just from what you see in your own life, and then you kind of have to figure out what that looks like for you guys. And I don't know, but yeah, I definitely, me and Josh both were kind of like you, where I have 2 older sisters. And so I'm kind of in the middle. My one sister's 9 years older than me. So it was weird. It kind of felt like an oldest child, but middle too. But I never was around like young kids very much, you know? And like I have one younger brother, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like I babysat him a ton. So anyway, I think just that alone though, not being around kids as much, like, yes, I always wanted to be a mom, but you kind of like just what you had said. I was like, I don't know how to be one though. And I like, it just was so weird to me. I'm like, this is just way harder than I thought. There's just so much to figure out after you get married. There really is.
For sure.
Yeah. So what do you think was, I guess, the hardest part about transitioning parenting with your husband, and like the best part for you guys?
The hardest part was just being vulnerable with each other, and like him sharing his feelings. He's not super good at that. Yeah. He's gotten a lot better, but like, and like pulling those feelings out of him, like, tell me how you feel. And I'm like, this is how I feel every second of every day. Like, I'm going to tell you. And so that difference of how we share our feelings, I think with hardship and trials, you just grow closer together. True. And you learn about each other's personalities more. And when you're put in those situations where you're keeping someone else alive, it's like, okay, we gotta do this. We gotta figure this out. And so it was a lot of just conversations and differing opinions, but with respect. Like like, I don't think that's the best way, but like, why do you think
But
that?
like lovingly figuring it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like, what's the middle ground? Like, what's the compromise of like where I'm at and where you're at to where it's the best thing for our child? And we've gotten to a point where I think we're in a really good spot parenting wise, where we know how ish to do it. I don't think you ever fully know.
I know it's still like a journey, but yeah, you get more used to it, I think.
Yeah,
And yeah.
definitely. So I think just going through those hard conversations of being vulnerable was the best and the worst part. It was hard, but so good for our relationship.
And it takes so much trust, like you
Yeah,
were saying, because
totally.
even though I'm like you, where I'm pretty open and talking about things, and it is definitely harder for Josh to do that. But I do think like through doing that, Josh has realized a lot about himself, and it really just in the end brings us closer, and we're better people and we're better parents. But it is hard to like take those layers down when you've never done this before, right? Like, because dating is so different than actually like committing to someone for life.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that parenting and just talking about emotions, like there's definitely some deeper layers as to why I am the way that I am that I didn't realize
Yeah.
until I really kind of dug in there.
You got to do it though to be the best version of yourself for not only your marriage, but yeah, for your kids. So
I guess I think that that's something about parenting that I don't think I really understood before becoming a parent. I understood it for business, that in order for a business to like become the best business, you really have to develop yourself.
Yeah.
And be self-aware. And because in business, like if you own it or you're the visionary, you're the one that's leading it, like the business will rise or fall based off of the leader, you know?
Yeah.
Like if the leader doesn't progress, the business won't progress. Parenting, I feel like, is honestly kind of the same. Like if you want to be a good parent, you have to be aware of yourself.
Yeah.
I was highly unaware that a huge portion of being a good parent is just not freaking out by being overstimulated. Like I don't feel
Staying
like I
calm,
fully
yeah.
understood that
Right.
before becoming a parent.
yeah, because you've never been pushed to that level. I feel like, you know,
yeah.
the toddler phase especially. I'm sure you
yeah.
can
Oh my gosh.
vibe with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it brings out feelings that you've never had in your life. You're like, am
Yeah.
I okay?
Do I need help?
Yeah, seriously. Oh gosh. So you had said earlier kind of with your husband, like he kind of had his own journey through the gospel a little bit. And like, you don't have to go into detail or anything, but I was just curious, like how that's been for you guys, like navigating just religion and like keeping God a priority in your marriage. Like how have you been able to do that? Because how long have you guys been married now?
We've been married for 4.5 years.
Oh yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. 2020. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so not much longer than us.
Because we got married October 2020. So we're about the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
Dude, pandemic
Pandemic love.
dating.
Yeah. We got married in a barn.
It's a very
At my
interesting
parents'
time to be dating.
It was weird. It was so weird. We like started planning our wedding before the shutdown or whatever.
Yep.
And it was going to be this ginormous Tongan thing. And I was like, cool, let's do it. But it obviously dwindled down and down and down and down to 10 people in a barn.
It's kind of nice that it was like probably more intimate that way and maybe not as
think
hectic. I don't know.
It was perfect for my son.
Yeah.
He is
I
not
could
a
see that too.
social, like he hates loudness, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so for him being an almost 3-year-old, it was perfect for him to be able to just sit with my parents. Well, with my mom. My dad married us. And
cute.
in the barn that he played in, you know, it was a lot more comfortable than in front of hundreds of people that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
but yeah, so I feel like at the beginning of our marriage, like he told me from the get-go, like, I love the gospel. I will never leave the church. And I knew that I would never leave the church, I think. You know,
In your mind, you're like, I'm hoping that, you know.
I am one to question and to doubt
Yes.
and to kind of get frustrated with certain things and like things that have been said or whatever. But I know that like even with those doubts and fears and questions, I knew that it was the best place to raise my family.
Yeah.
Whether I agreed with everything that everyone said or not. And so we had a lot of discussions around that, but we both had the foundation of like, this is what we want, how we want to raise our family.
Yes.
And so we've grown, we've had to like recommit ourselves to the gospel. Not that we're like we've always been active in our marriage, but it's the outside of the church, going to church on Sundays, that we somewhat struggle with, like reading our scriptures and praying. And we've gotten better at those, and we've had to recommit ourselves. And
Do you guys do that together or try to, or do you feel like it's more separate? Like
we try to do it together. It's more like separate, and then we talk about what we
that's
read
nice
or whatever.
Yeah,
but we pray together every day.
That's
and
so good.
It's been a really great.
Do you usually do it at night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because he either is working by the time I get the kids off to school, or mornings are hectic.
And
so.
are you working like
No, just TikTok collabs and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
not really. So
because you had said he works from home
yeah.
doing what again?
He is a project manager for like an energy solutions company.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's all.
Does he like it?
Yeah. He was in sales before and really good at it and loved the connecting with people and
Yeah.
What kind of sales?
For like a construction software company.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, to like do blueprints but like all digitally and have
Yeah.
So he loved that. He is a connection person. He can connect with someone, like he's the most personable human in the world. And so he misses that aspect of
Like talking
sales.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But he likes the like
Convenience.
paycheck is the same every time.
Yes.
Because with sales you're
More stable. Yeah.
And he had a connection in this company, and he just kind of took it and ran with it, and it's been great. He loves it.
That's awesome. And then he's also a football coach, right? For the
Yes.
high school?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
the defensive coordinator for the local high school that I went to.
Oh, wow. I know
So-
it was the local high school that you
Yeah.
went to. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's very time consuming.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like,
Yeah.
obviously, every single day, and Friday nights are long, and then film on Saturdays.
Especially with
and-
young kids. Like, do you
Yeah.
try to go to a lot of the games with?
Yeah, if they're home games, we go.
Yeah.
Because I love it. I love football.
That's awesome.
It's like, I love the environment, and it's so fun. Mm-hmm. It's definitely like, we made that decision together to where it's like, he's like, this is an opportunity that I have. I would love to take it, but what are your thoughts on it? Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, it would be hard for sure, but I think that you would get a lot out of it.
Because how many, did he just start doing this?
Yeah, just this season.
Just this season.
Yeah, so
Okay.
in the summer he started going to camps and
Okay.
stuff. So
it's definitely a new change, like a new change. Yeah.
it's time consuming, but the passion and the love that he has for it just like is so satisfying to me that like I mean like he's doing the work, but like I'm able to give that to him by
Well,
being
yeah,
at
you
home.
have to be supporting him
Yeah,
too. So
yeah.
that's really cool
So
that you
it's
were
been really
supportive in
great.
that. Yeah.
It's been awesome.
I wanted to ask you, because I, listened to some of your videos about talking about going to the temple and how you and your husband have kind of made that a priority.
Yeah.
How did you guys come to that decision? Like, because you had said that you guys take turns going, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of came from like we need to strengthen ourselves, kind of like one of those recommitment moments
Yeah.
where it's like our spirituality is lacking, which I feel like is life. You're on these ups and downs,
Totally.
and sometimes you're like on top of it, and other times you're like, ooh, I haven't gone for like months and months.
Well, and it's a lot harder to make that a priority with kids, as you know. So
for sure.
yeah.
So it kind of was like when we were going through. It came from going through hardships financially. We were struggling. There were things that happened that we had to work through as a couple and as like with that trust between each other. And we both felt strongly that making the gospel a priority would help us.
Yeah.
Not like directly financially, but like in our relationship and how we work through things. And so we made that decision to once a week I go, the next week he goes. So like every other week we go, and then we try to go together like once a month.
Yeah. I guess you'd be going on your own like a couple times a month, right?
Yeah.
Each of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we usually do initiatories because it's shorter and easier to fit in.
Yeah.
But since the endowment session is shortened a little, we've kind of been able to fit it in. And so
That's amazing.
it's
I
been
like that
great.
it's shorter.
Me too. My attention span is not great. And
Dude,
so
I like have a hard time. I'm glad that at least the ones I've gone to, they don't turn off the lights anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I would like almost fall asleep.
right.
Yeah, it's
Totally.
so peaceful in there. You're like, oh, especially if you go early or you're
Yeah,
tired. I mean, we're
right.
always tired though as parents. So, but me and Josh actually have had those same feelings. Like, I just like that you said to kind of recommit, because you're constantly doing that, I think, throughout your marriage and life. And
Yeah.
but especially when it comes to spirituality and what that looks like individually, but also together. And so honestly, even with the podcast, like moving forward with it, I've kind of felt a lot of promptings of just like, if I continue to make God a priority and go to the temple, I don't know what's going to work out, but I just have faith that we're doing the right thing, you know? And I think it's a lot easier to feel that way when we're never going to be perfect, but it does feel a lot more peaceful, I guess, when I'm serving and I feel like I'm putting God first.
Yeah.
And then these other things start to work out. And it's never going to be, like I said, perfect, but I definitely think me and Josh have felt those feelings too. And we've been trying, like our goal has been at first just to go once a month, but I really look up to you for just being open about talking about that, because there are like a lot of things online that talk about the temple, I think, in a negative light. And it's interesting because I've had this conversation with Josh a lot where like, I personally, I've struggled with a lot of different things, but for some reason the temple's always been just like my safe place. And it never really was weird to me, like going through the temple. And I felt really happy, and I've always felt pretty happy being in the temple, and I take it just personally, like really seriously. And I just want to be like the best I can. And, you know, before I do that, but yeah, I just think it's worth it, you know, it's a lot to, I'm sure, coordinate for you guys to do, but applaud you. Cause I do think it makes a huge difference doing that. So
yeah, it does. I feel like you said, like, I don't know how everything's going to turn out, but I know that if I'm doing my part, I have faith that it will. There's a talk that I heard on my mission from Bednar, and one line that says, if you're being good boys and girls, it'll work out. And I don't know why I always go back to that, but it simplifies it for me to where I'm like, okay, if I'm doing what I know that I need to be doing, it will work out. And it like takes some of the anxiety away, I guess. And going to the temple more regularly has been such an eye opener to where I feel a lot more peace with decisions that we're making, and I feel so guided by God, just in everyday life, but also in connections that I'm making. And I feel like, like you said, I'm doing my part, so he's going to do his. He's going to show up and guide you in your life.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that. I feel like for me in my life, there's been periods where I felt maybe less like religious, maybe been more apathetic towards like the organization of the church. Not that I never went through like a period of like disbelief. It was more like, how is this going to be in my life or not going to be in my life? Yeah. And really, when I was thinking about it, I was just thinking about it in the moment, not like anything long term.
Right.
You know, like I don't really want to go to church today, you know, just kind of want to sleep in.
Yeah.
Or I want to go do something. But I feel like Caitlin and I have always been very, very spiritual. Yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. It's just like spirituality. I think it's very important. Like in our personal lives, I feel like it's played a large role in our relationship as well, because we've done our best to be good. You know, we're not perfect, but I feel like you and I both also have that general feeling, like if we just do our best, like no matter what happens, if like the world flips upside down, things will work out for our good.
Yeah.
I do have some questions that, like, I'm just curious what your answers are. I recently met with a bishop because I got a tattoo recently. And I was curious what your perspective is on tattoos. I think I have a unique perspective on it, so I'm curious what yours are.
Hopefully people don't hate me for sharing my opinion. But I mean, I've always seen tattoos as not a huge deal. Some of my tattoos were when I was inactive and was like, cool, I'll do whatever I want. But I've gotten one tattoo when I have been active, and it sounds really weird, but like it was like a conversation I had with God, to where I was like, these are my feelings about it. This is what it means to me. Like putting this on my body, this is like what it represents to me. Are you okay with that? Like, I feel like it's okay, but I want your opinion on it. And I just personally felt that it was okay, and that it would bring me connections that I maybe wouldn't have without tattoos, which sounds really weird, which I think kind of is my thoughts around my style and my hair, having weird hair or whatever, is like, I've made so many connections with non-members and with inactives and people who have left the church that I don't think I would have if I had the appearance of a Molly Mormon. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, that's just like my journey on choosing like my hairstyles and tattoos. And
I think that's so cool. Caitlin's smiling at me because our perspectives are very, very similar. I had this really interesting experience a couple months ago on this like men's retreat. It's called The Collective. It's like a group of like 50 guys. Most of us are in sales in some aspect, and sales, like the door-to-door space, which I'm a part of, is really, really cutthroat. Like you have to be very, very careful with who you're vulnerable with because they can use it against you or leverage it against you somehow. So I was actually very hesitant to join and definitely not super interested in being vulnerable with people. And I have a really small circle as it is. I kind of like it that way.
Yeah.
And then I have lots of acquaintances. But we did this breath work session. It was like 45 minutes long and it was pretty freaking intense. I don't know. I just had this experience while we were doing it that I felt this impression that I should get a tattoo. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking like, why? Like I shouldn't, like I felt peaceful about it.
Yeah.
And then I had like this immense feeling of like fear of judgment. And then that feeling of peace came back again. And I feel like where I was touching on like on spirituality, I feel like I'm in tune enough with myself to know and recognize what's coming from God and what's not coming from God.
Yeah.
And my distinct impression, I can envision myself holding my childhood self, and then it switched to me holding my son. I just felt like I needed to show that no matter what, like love is shown here. Love is expressed no matter if you go in a line or out of a line. And it's just like a verbal, or it's not a verbal, it's like a visual reminder that no matter what my son does in this life, like I love him.
Yeah.
And I feel like God feels the same way about us.
Yeah.
And I also felt like, because after this experience, I called you like immediately afterwards, and I was kind of, I just didn't
It
really.
was a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it was
to
just like
process,
it was a lot. But I felt like as I was processing the experience, I felt to myself as well that there's people that maybe I could reach that I couldn't reach otherwise.
Yeah.
So I went and talked with the bishop after I did it. I was just kind of honestly just curious what he would think.
Yeah.
Our bishop is Polynesian, and he's really cool, like really, really cool. I explained the experience that I had and why I got it. It's my son's birthday, and he told me that the feeling that I got was from God. Like I'm in this weird place right now, though, because I feel like this area that I thought was very black and white, now it's maybe a little bit more gray.
Yeah.
And I don't really know how to navigate that. And so he talked to me about this experience actually with Kava.
Perfect.
With Kava. He told me years ago in the Polynesian Islands, like church leaders added to the temple questions if members drank Kava. And he said that it was a mistake and it was wrong, that the church leaders shouldn't have done that. And then a couple years later, they reversed it. And he explained what kava was and how it was more so the intent behind drinking the kava and like what happened while the kava was being drank.
Yeah.
But that it's not against the word of wisdom. So, or if it's not in the word of wisdom, it's not against the word of wisdom. And like he said that we need to be careful of like adding things in. I don't know. I guess he was just trying to explain to me that intention matters a lot.
Yeah.
And so he told me, he gave me like this green light to get tattoos as long as I feel like it's not interfering with my relationship with God. And I don't know that I felt like this really big draw to get more tattoos. I might, but 1,000%, I feel like there's something changing in the church.
Yeah.
I don't really consider myself like a progmo or a progressive Mormon, but I feel like it's more of like letter of law, spirit of the law type thing. Like I feel like when you say progressive Mormon, I feel like it brings political things into it that doesn't really need to be involved with it.
Right. Yeah.
But just when I think about my relationship with my son, I feel like that's how God feels about us, except even more.
Yeah.
You know, not so much like a bishop that when you make a mistake is going to tell you how mad God is at you. I feel like internally we already kind of feel that. Does what I'm saying making sense?
That makes total sense. And it just like for me, like I don't know if you've read the new For the Strength of Youth pamphlet, but that shows the shift in mindset of like, it's not a book of do's and don'ts anymore. It's like here's modesty. Talk to God about it and how you feel about it. It's a lot more about governing yourself.
An agency.
Yeah, agency and having those conversations with God instead of just doing it because someone told you to do it. And it's a little bit of a slippery slope because there's a lot of justification that goes on and a lot of like, well, I don't think I need to do that or whatever. And so I think it comes down to your personal relationship with God and governing yourself and being honest with yourself with like, am I doing this to be rebellious or am I doing this because I feel like it's what I want and need to do?
Yeah.
And so, I think learning as a youth to govern yourself and have those conversations is so helpful especially nowadays.
So there's another story that I want to share. I'm curious your perspective on it.
Okay.
So this is something we haven't talked about on the podcast. It also kind of ties into my conversation with the bishop and kava and intention. So Caitlin bought these CBD gummies a couple of like months ago, and I almost never feel any effect from CBD.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But Caitlin didn't realize that the CBD gummies she bought had a little bit of THC in them.
Nice.
They were these gummies, like they were like really like cutesy bottles.
Yeah.
That like it looks like a Utah influencer would like show it in their
Yeah.
Instagram. I'm sure that's how you found it.
Yeah, for sure.
Where it says that there's THC is in small white letters, and I didn't see it. And I don't even think you knew.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you knew.
Well, because I had tried CBD before and I was like, oh, well, yeah, I want to try these.
Yeah, we
ones.
like CBD.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
yeah.
I feel like you've liked it more than I have because I've never felt it. But I was the first one to pop the bottle, so to speak. And I just grabbed 2 gummies and I ate them. And like 45 minutes to an hour later, I got high for the first time ever. And it took me like 20 minutes to realize what exactly was happening.
Right.
And so I went downstairs, looked at the bottle, and I was like, Caitlin,
You just got me high.
you just got me high. But the feeling that I got from it, like the initial feeling once I realized what it was I was feeling is like, dude, I don't feel like God would be mad at me for feeling like this.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was like a microdose. It wasn't
Yeah.
like I was smoking like a blunt,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I liked it significantly more than I was expecting to. And it was one of those areas in my life where, like, if you'd asked me 5 minutes before I began feeling those feelings, it probably was a black and white thing. I would just never feel the need to touch it. But now that I inadvertently had gotten high, I thought, like, was weighing this out in my mind. Like, is this bad? Is this not bad? It doesn't feel bad. Genuinely, like, when I was on it, I felt so much more love for my child, my wife. Feel like I was a more playful father.
Yeah.
Because I have like a super analytical mind that I can go very, very deep into. But I felt like it reopened this childlike self, which I know that you've seen it, Kate.
Yeah, for sure.
Because long story short, we still buy those gummies. But I was getting ready to talk to the bishop about that as well and the tattoo. Like I was like thinking, dude, like what is going on in my life right now? Just like 2 big things that I never really had any anticipation of ever really dealing with. Because before I never had any interest really in tattoos. Like I thought they were cool, but I never felt like a draw to actually do anything with it. He was telling me the story about the kava and about, like, because kava, it gives you, like, it makes you feel different, right?
Yeah.
In a way that maybe is not all that different from THC in a way. I don't know. I've never done kava.
Yeah.
But
It's disgusting.
is it? I've heard that it tastes gross.
The taste is weird.
Gross.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
I've heard that it tastes gross.
Yeah.
But when he told me that if it's not like in the word of wisdom, that it's not against the word of wisdom and that intention plays a massive role in it, I was thinking to myself, because I also, when I was having that experience with the tattoos, that was after I'd gotten high for the first time on accident. And I was like having this conversation with God. The feeling I got was, are you trying to replace like dealing with a hard day with this? Like, are you relying on it instead of Christ? And my answer was no. It was like I was doing like this inventory. Do you feel more love towards others? Yes. Do you feel like more love towards your son? Yes. Do you feel like you can still hear my voice? Yes. I've answered yes to all those. And then the feeling I got was that it's not that deep.
Yeah.
And that was the same feeling I got with the tattoo, which is radically different from what like a Bible thumping or Book of Mormon thumping Mormon would think. You know, people maybe 20 years older than us would think, but I don't know. Like I knew in my heart what I felt, and I knew that it was from God, and then I felt like it was confirmed by the bishop. And so it's just kind of weird. You know, it's because like people can have this super different experience with one bishop and then have one with my bishop where he's super, I don't know, I just felt like he was super in tune with the Spirit, and I don't feel like he was telling me something that wasn't true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. I know that was a long ramble, but I'm assuming your husband maybe still likes kava.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just like you said, it's not that deep. I think we are more self-critical than we need to be. and more like, holy crap, am I gonna like die from this, or not be able to attend church or whatever. And so I think it does come down to those conversations with God, and he's, the ultimate judge. And so I think in individual experiences and instances, I think the answer could be different, like for each person.
Yeah.
So I think being really in tune and self-aware with yourself to know that, like, I'm not going to get addicted to this, or like, I'm not using it to cover something up. I think having those conversations and recognizing your intent, and like being able to see that it's benefiting you and your relationship with God instead of hindering it. So I think, I know that, like, before I said, like, tell me exactly what to do and I'll do it. And I am good at that, but it's also that gray area where it's not always black and white. And I think those are the refining moments in your spirituality and relationship with God, to where you recognize those answers. And so, yeah, it really is not that deep, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. I don't know. I feel like I'm so hesitant sometimes to talk about things like this, and I don't know if it like stems from judgment that I've had from other people, because I have a tattoo as well, and like, I don't know. I think I was like you in that the moment that I did get the tattoo, where I just wanted to kind of be rebellious and just do something that just felt fun, I guess. And so, but it has been interesting for me to kind of sit back and see how the church's stance in a way has changed. And we talked about this earlier, but you have served in young women's and I've served in young women's. And so obviously, like, I want to just in general, like, be a good example, but also, like, I've thought about exactly what you said earlier about, who you are as a person, your hair, whatever it may be. I think that draws people in just because I think you have an aura about yourself where it just comes across, like, it's just crazy to me, like, even on social media, where I could just tell that you're down to earth, you're genuine, you're open, And I just feel like I draw more to people that way. And I think there's been times that in my life that have been hard. Just, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. I mean, there's judgment everywhere though, right? It's not just culture or being LDS. But I felt, judged at times with certain things that I've done or having a tattoo, whatever it may be. But I think, like you said, just learning to be that example for maybe the youth, if you're serving in that capacity, or just in general, like, some things really are personal and it's not just a black and white answer. And I think I just loved your answer about governing yourself and figuring out what works for you, and just kind of letting go of the shame and just kind of moving forward with what you really feel is right. Because you don't know, like, the way that you act, the way that you present yourself, or even just sharing some stories that you might have shared in your life. Or me, I do feel like it makes me obviously who I am, but then it draws other people to you, and also kind of gives them, I guess, just to be more open and talking about those things, and so I am grateful for that. And I want to continue to be that. And so, yeah, just thank you for, like, being a good example that way. And because it really, I know it helps people, especially in the church, to kind of feel like I'm not damaged and I have a story, and it can be powerful. Like, it's almost like your superpower in a way too. But I see the other side of it, because I've been there, like you were saying, where it can be a slippery slope, and you can be like, just in school, I remember hearing that story of where, like, the frogs in the water, right? And when you turn it up, they, the frog jumps out, but when you slowly turn it to a boil, the frog doesn't realize, right? And just kind of cooks. And so I do, like, know myself, and there are things where I think I maybe used to cope, or it maybe wasn't the best intention at times, in my own life. And so, but I think it's just a journey, like we've been saying kind of this whole time, that it's day to day kind of where we're at, and just to love, and be accepting, but also have, like, standards, but almost just for yourself, like, not putting that on anyone else, or doing these garment checks for people, or thinking this person's doing that. And we just don't know everyone's story. We don't know what they're going through, why they're choosing certain things. And so, yeah, I just think, like we've just said, Josh said, it's individual too. So, and it kind of comes back to our relationship with God.
It is a little scary, the gray area sometimes. But I feel like, kind of like what you've said, I feel like, and I'm not saying this as like an excuse to be in a gray area, but 1000% us standing maybe with like a toe over the line, would help us pull somebody in that maybe they wouldn't, like if I feel like it allows God to cast a little bit wider of a net for people that, I don't know, are just looking for acceptance and love.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I know that I've made connections. Like a lot of my followers are kind of, they followed me from like the mullet era. I had like shaved sides and a long mullet and like a shorter top. And I gained a lot of awesome mom friends from that, kind of like alternative moms or whatever. and I've just recently started sharing a little bit more about my faith with caution, because I don't ever want to feel like anyone's outcast or like, but like I do feel like I'm able to reach more people because I'm more approachable. I mean, like I'm not this, I don't know. I've tried really hard to make connections and not have the gospel be a factor in whether I connect with someone or not.
Yeah.
And I have made some of the best friends, most Christ-like people in my life. And I feel like my life leading up to this point has led me there. And the choices that I make has led me there. And I know that it's all from God. And so it is hard, the judgment, like, oh, like being pregnant,
Yeah.
a return missionary, and single, and I moved to my home ward where I was in
That would
Young
be
Women's.
really hard.
Oh, it was one of those moments where like, yeah, no, I don't want this, because you go to church every Sunday and everyone has opinions. Everyone wants to, with good intention. I don't think any of them had bad intentions, but it was one of those moments where I was like, all right, I need to decide now how I react to this judgment and react to the criticism, because it could have easily pushed me away and been been like, no, I don't even want to give myself standards so that I don't ever break the standards. And I think for me, it was very, very liberating to be like, no one else matters in my journey except for my Heavenly Father. And like, it allowed me to let go of those judgments or the criticisms and it's allowed me to make decisions more freely. Like even with my hair, I feel like there's always a little part of me where I'm like, ooh, people are going to think this is weird, especially when I go into Relief Society with a shaved head, but it's allowed me to be like, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. No one cares about me that much to like, my one of my favorite quotes is something along the lines of like, you'll care less about what people think when you realize how seldom they do. They're not thinking of you. Like they don't think of you. At the end of the day, they're thinking about themselves and how they can,
and everything going on in their own life. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So like, who cares?
Yep.
And so it's been super liberating to be like, sweet. And then it gives me the ability to not judge others.
Yeah.
And be like, who cares? That's okay. Like,
well, and you only get one life, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why?
Yeah.
That's why we're here, is to stand out in our own way. And that's what draws people to us, right? And I think it's really easy to kind of fall into, especially for me personally, growing up in Utah, like thinking there is for sure this like cookie cutter standard of what a Mormon looks like, or whatever it may be. There's a spectrum, and it's so cool. Like everyone's uniqueness, you know? And I'm sure at times there are people that might think certain things about whatever choices we make, and that's totally fine. But like you said, at the end of the day, if you solely just think about what does my Heavenly Father think of me, it makes all the difference, And I remember when I had said earlier, when I was living in Sugar House and I had that bishop, that was like a life-changing, defining moment for me, because I felt like probably for the first time in a really long time, I felt like he was the spokesperson for God, at that time for me. And I just remember like looking into his eyes, and I truly felt like that deep, deep love of like my Heavenly Father towards me. That has carried me through so many times, just thinking like, I am a daughter of God. And like, I really just want to have that special relationship, because that relationship that I have with Heavenly Father is unique, you know, and everyone should, I just want everyone to feel that, you know, like just know that they're cared for and they're loved. And no matter what, like they can rely on that relationship. And it's, once again, like a journey, and it's ongoing to kind of figure out what that relationship looks like, you know, but it just gives me a lot of peace to know that, because there's a lot of people that maybe you feel like you can't trust or you can't rely on at times, and it's hard and you feel alone, but you'll never feel alone really if you can just realize that you always have your Heavenly Father, you know, there for you. So
Yeah.
I was going to bring up Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I just want to bring it up because it's just something that's been going on, I guess, in
Right.
pop culture and I don't know, our religion. But the show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, have you watched it?
Yes.
Did you watch the whole thing?
I did.
Okay. So what were your, I guess, initial thoughts after you finished it?
Honestly, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun and crazy and dramatic, and
Definitely.
that's what reality TV is. And I'm a sucker for reality TV.
Oh, for sure.
Give
Me
me all
too.
the drama.
We watch a lot in our house.
I've roped Josh into like all of my reality
Significantly
TV.
Yes.
more than I ever watched for the other years of my life.
Yeah, same with my husband. He's like, you can watch a show if you want. And then he's like, what did she just say? And I'm like, yeah, come on, sit
Yeah,
down.
I know you think it's dumb, but now you're wrapped into it.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
I feel like I've had mixed feelings about it. Like initially, like when the trailer came out, I was like, oh my heck, like.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it just like this, like certain things that they said, you know, that I don't agree with. I was like, frick, that sucks that that's going to be put out there.
For sure.
So I don't I don't know, like part of me is like, I don't care, as in the sense of like these girls are all of us. They are just making decisions.
Once
and
again, they all have their own story,
yeah,
you know?
they all have their own journey. They all have their own upbringing. They all have like why they make the decisions that they do. And so like more power to you. You do that. I think the struggle that I had is certain things that they would say. Like I think the most critical one that I was like, oh frick, that sucks, was like we're raised to be these housewives. And,
Yeah, I knew you were
and
going to say
fulfill
that.
all of my husband's desires. And I'm like, ew, what? Like, shut up. That's
Yeah,
gross.
it's gross for sure.
That's
Yeah.
gross. And I never was taught that. My mom has always been a huge, strong presence and like has a master's degree and
Amazing.
is just a powerful woman. And she has not once, she doesn't submit to my dad in a way of like, you're in charge, honey.
Yeah,
She's like,
totally.
no. So it's like, it's such an equal marriage. That's what I grew up with, is like
That's good.
them both having equal say in everything that we do and everything that comes for our family. And so, and in my marriage, like we are so equal, like,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's like equal across the board, because we do have those natural roles that we fill. But like at the end of the day, we are equal in
You're a
purpose
partnership.
and-
You're teammates. Yeah, totally.
And so he might fulfill roles that I can't fulfill, but I make up for it by fulfilling roles that he can't fulfill.
Yep.
And so I think that part was like, no, we don't believe that. Like
Yeah.
I've always been taught that I'm equal to a man, and that in marriage I will have just as much power as my husband, and I will talk directly to God and not through my husband to God. And so that part was like, ugh, dang it. And then the whole like Jen and Zach thing, where she said, someone says like, that's a typical Mormon husband. And I was like, ew, I would not be married. I would not be married if that was...
That,
know.
the control and everything. Yeah, for sure.
And I know that there are marriages out there like that. And and maybe like the church in the past has somewhat accidentally made that happen or whatever, like culturally,
Yeah.
in the past. But like nowadays, I think just in general, those types of relationships are more rare
Yeah.
than common.
Yeah.
And so like if my husband ever talked to me like that, first of all, he would never, just because he's a nice human, but like he knows that I demand respect and he demands respect from me, and that's just part of our marriage, is that we respect each other. And that even if we do something that the other disagrees with, we just have a conversation about it, like, hey, I don't know about that, and we talk about it, and it's a very cordial, respectful, loving conversation.
Yeah.
And so those parts of it, I was like, frick, that's annoying.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just, it's kind of like, it's a reality show. It's
Yeah.
not that deep.
Oh,
Like,
100%.
It'll
Yeah.
go away in a couple, it'll simmer.
It'll die down.
So,
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
But I think a part of it that has bugged me so much is the members' reactions to it.
Yeah.
It has honestly like pissed me off where I'm like, you think they're giving us a bad name? Look at how you're reacting on social media where you're like, these women are horrible. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
ew.
really bad on the other side too, like acting the way that they're members could act. Yeah, I agree.
So that part has bugged me where it's like, take a chill pill. Like, worry about yourself.
It's like you don't have to watch it, whatever, if
Yeah.
you don't want to, totally. But I
Totally up
think,
to
like
you.
you said, it can shed a bad light as well because
Yeah.
there are lots of people in the church that, like we have been saying this whole time, have a story and it's totally fine.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean like there was a guy who posted on TikTok that's like, no one's going to watch this show and think that's exactly each person on this show is exactly how a Mormon girl or person is, right?
Yeah.
And if you do think that, come on, guys. Like
Yeah.
there has to be
Yeah.
more to it. Like you said, it's a reality show. But I think for sure, like the Jen and Zach storyline hurt me to watch just because I know there's a lot of women in Utah especially that get married young. And I think sometimes that can be hard to figure out who you are,
Right.
what your voice is in that marriage and everything. And so it sucked that Jen was kind of more of like the active Mormon and that was kind of the example, but like you said, that could be, a lot of marriages just in general, right? Not even just someone who's LDS. And so I think we can just learn from that like you need to have those conversations, right? And I don't know, just the control.
I feel like it was portrayed as like it's make or break. You've got to leave him.
Yeah, the
type
ultimatums
thing.
Yeah,
were
that was
weird.
And
weird.
it
Yeah.
was like, okay, but you're married and you're
you
not
have 2 kids
perfect.
together. Yeah.
You're like no one's perfect. And so in a marriage, when you bring those two together, you will have things to work on and to change. And I hope that they take this opportunity to strengthen their marriage. And I think it can work. And I don't know, it's just like, it's the like all in or all out type thing that just kills us.
Yeah.
In anything, in religion, like if you don't like one thing, I'm out. Like if in a marriage, if you don't like one thing, you're out. And that's such a harmful way to look at things.
Well, yeah. And I've had that conversation with people that are even close to me. Like, oh, well, when I was growing up, it really was like all in or all out. And I wish I would have felt like I could research more things or have more of a voice or whatever. And it's like, that's just normal to have feelings, like you said, to have questions and
Right.
also ups and downs, like you said, with marriage. Like, so when something gets really, really hard, you're going to throw in the towel. Like, and so from what I've heard, at least it seems like Jen and Zach have been going to lots of therapy and like working through things. Like, obviously who knows what's going to actually happen, but I think that it's probably good for them to kind of see that come to light. And maybe they were like, wow, like we need to work on some things, and it doesn't mean they have to get divorced. Right. And so you just need to feel more empowered, I think, like as a member too. Like you don't have to feel like stifled or I can't like do research on these things or I don't know, just we've talked about that too. Just like feeling like you can figure it out for yourself, and I definitely agree with what you said about the submitting to your husband and everything. I just think that
It's definitely not been our marriage.
I'd be there.
yeah. I think that it's awesome, like to have roles, and I love the balance of a marriage and what that brings. But I think we're both a part of the marriage and parenting for a reason, and we have good and bad and strengths and weaknesses. And I don't know. I just am glad. Like you said, there might be some marriages that are that way, and that breaks my heart because it just shouldn't be that way. You know.
When I really think about it, I really feel like the majority of marriages that I do know that are like that, and there's not very many, a lot of it is like a generational thing. Like they're usually older. Culturally, it was more normal like that.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that just to blame the church on that is kind of weird. It's like there was a period of time where maybe that may have been more close to like what it was like.
Yeah.
But that was probably what it was like for everybody at the time.
Like during that time. Yeah, for sure.
Like it's impossible to divorce the cultural context in which the church exists at a specific time from like you can't just point at the church and say that. Like that's the church when 40 years later it's really not like that.
Yeah. And I think that's such a testament to like an ongoing restoration of the
100%.
church. Like it's not going to stay stagnant. It's going to move with the times, not to give up standards, but to recognize that that culture does have a part in it, and Heavenly Father is aware of that, and that it's an ongoing, changing restoration of the gospel.
I think that that's been so attacked, though, almost thinking of it as like a really bad thing, like the church is
Like flip-flopping
wrong, and and I love your thoughts on that. That it's like it makes sense that God would realize that, right, and that it's okay. It's not like we're changing doctrine or like the Bible or, it's like just culture.
I was super curious about this cultural context in which people are trying to live the gospel are in.
Yeah.
I was curious about the word of wisdom because of like my experiences with those gummies. I was just curious. Back in Christ's time, they drank wine, right?
Yeah.
I was curious about it. I was like, was the wine the same? Like because I remember hearing that it was like grape juice. It wasn't grape juice.
Yeah.
Like stories as to like why it was okay then, why it's not okay now. Culturally at the time, their access to clean water was really difficult to get.
Yeah.
And so they would mix wine with water. It wasn't, the actual purpose wasn't necessarily to get drunk.
Yeah.
It was just to drink clean water. And you'd have to drink 6 times the amount. Like you'd have to drink 6 cups of wine back then to equate 1 cup of wine now. So if you think about it, it's like, culturally it makes sense as to why people back then, it was okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not as good now. It's just different now.
Yeah. It does go to show, like, even the word of wisdom is such a self-governing thing, because it has changed with the times, in the sense of, like, a lot of us aren't living the word of wisdom by how we're taking care of ourselves.
No, we're not.
Not whether or not
100%.
you drink coffee or not, like.
Or you're 300 pounds overweight.
Right. Are you eating McDonald's every single day? That's not living the word of wisdom.
No,
so,
it's not.
You got to, govern yourself and talk to God about it, and see how you can best live the word of wisdom, or best live the standards of the church. So it's not that deep. I keep going back to that, but really it's not that deep. I love
it. That's probably the
title.
Yeah, the theme of
It's
our
not that
It's not
deep.
that deep.
of this
That's
episode.
a good one.
I love it. That's awesome.
Well, we're super grateful that we got to know you and that you came on. You're such a cool person.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's been really neat getting to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And just grateful that you're open and just honest with, your story and your life. I know that it's helped me, and I know that it'll continue to help others in the podcast. So
if people wanted to follow you or find you on social media, where could they find you?
I think both Instagram and TikTok are just Nia Lui, Nialui.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to the Zoom.